Welcome, everyone, to part 2 of Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're looking for the more traditional stick and ball sports, that's over on part 1. Today, on this one, we're looking at the face punching, as it was Tank Davis with a knockout win over Frank Martin at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. There is a big UFC main event coming up and a big edition of Monday Night Raw after a fun Clash at the Castle. Let's get all into it with some fight talk. So, Tank Davis with a impressive knockout win over Frank Martin. And the big takeaway from this one is, surprise, surprise, Tank's power is incredible. Like, from the 6th round on, you may as well have been playing the Jaws theme, because it just felt inevitable. And he was losing on the cards. He had lost pretty clearly the 4 of the first 5 rounds anyway, but then he just started walking down. He started figuring out what he could walk through, figuring out how he could walk through the other stuff, how to avoid everything. He had downloaded all the information, and he was ready to get going, and get going he did. It was just so impressive to watch. Once he realized what he needed to do and how he needed to do it, like I said, there's no other word to describe it than it felt inevitable. Once he did get the timing of Martin's jab, that was the real key, and you could see it coming. Like I said, 5th, 6th round, the jab would come out, and he would hit him with an uppercut, or he'd come around it quickly with a left hook that would get quite a bit of pressure going as well, and that. I feel like that was when the counters really started to land and he really started to get going. And then he seals the deal with an uppercut that absolutely stuns him, and then a left hook that is just curtains after that point. They did the 10 count. They didn't need to. It was just DUN done at that point. There is very little like it in the smaller weight classes. It is now 30-0 with 28 wins by knockout. And like some of it, it's not like it's just like a bunch of volume and the official steps in. It is game-changing, fight-altering, ruining your life power that Tank Davis is bringing to the table in the most just ferocious of ways. And he has that ability, and then all of that destruction that he is able to bring, and he's smart about it as well. Like, this isn't just a lucky power puncher or a brawler or anything like that. This is someone who is going in, reading what his opponent is giving him, understanding how his strengths can counter off of that, and then going out there and just obliterating people. It is a delight to watch Tank Davis do what he does. He assesses how the fight is going, what openings are there, exploits it, and does it in a big-time way. And the one opening that Martin really left, it wasn't the jab, because I like Martin's jab, and we'll get to what Martin did right in a little bit, but Martin fought a really good fight, and I was impressed, but he did leave one opening that was consistently there for Tank, and they brought it up on the broadcast. He was consistently getting caught up in the corner. Early on, the Ghost nickname was accurate, right? Like, he had really good footwork to kind of shimmy his way out. He would then start to throw as he's circling out to create a bit more space for him to be able to get out of the corners. But eventually, again, he started to get stuck more, and he started to get stuck more, and it was taking a little bit more to get out, and taking a little bit more to get out, and then finally Tank just fully cut him off in that 8th, where he's trying to circle back around. He's continuing to circle to his right side, and as he is circling around there, Tank just comes over and cuts him off, and at that point, like, there's a right waiting for you if you try to cut it back this way, or you're stuck, and then it's boom with the uppercut, drills him with the left, and it's finished. Again, it is reading how the fight is going from Tank Davis, understanding where his skills now can line up to a point of pure destruction, and he is able to capitalize off of it. Again, just chef's kiss from Tank Davis. Just really, really strong stuff that he was able to do, and really kind of make Martin into a bit of a sitting duck. But really, like, Martin has a lot that he can be happy with coming out of this fight. He did what he was supposed to do in the early rounds, right? Like, he was going out there, he was winning rounds, and he was setting it up in a way that boxing purists are going to love. He was using the jab, which still is wildly underutilized in the sport of MMA, but is underutilized as well a little bit sometimes in boxing. But he was setting everything up coming off of that jab, and he was using it as a weapon. He was using it as a defensive tool to get out of the corner, and he was using it to set up combinations. He was doing all of those things really, really well. It was just getting caught up in the corner, and I think misunderstanding why he was able to get out of there before. I'm not saying Tank was letting him out of the corner, but whether he slowed down, whether Tank figured it out, or probably both, he was just getting caught up a little bit too much, and that ended up costing him. But he did a good job overall of avoiding the power shots from Tank until he didn't, and landing some more of his own. His technique was really, really strong. You love the jab. You love how it set it up and all of that. He's just not on the pound-for-pound top 10 tier. Like, I think Martin will give a lot of lightweight fighters quite a few problems and present a lot of challenges to a number of very, very talented fighters. It's just Tank Davis isn't one of them. Another thing that Tank did well, just kind of bouncing around all over the place here, but another thing that Tank did well, his body work I thought was quite good. And that I think started to lead to some of the slowing down for Martin. Some power shots were landing to the head for sure, but what Tank was able to land consistently in the early rounds was some stuff to the body. And again, that investment slowing Martin down. But for Tank, it was a 14-month layoff, self-imposed to a certain degree, as he did wind up in jail. But the talk this week about how he has matured and how he has grown, I can't speak to the man personally even a little bit, but from a boxing standpoint, that was a mature, grown performance and a really, real strong stamp that, hey, I'm this guy. Like, I don't know if we'll do pound for pound tomorrow. I still don't see a way where I can get Tank any higher than I had him before. But he deserves to be in the conversation. And I can't wait to see what's next for him. We'll do fights to make coming off of this, coming up on Friday. The Ultimate Fighting Championship has had a lot to do over the next little bit. They have a big card coming up in Saudi Arabia this weekend. That one, we saw the change with Robert Whittaker getting a new opponent as Khamzat Chimaev comes off of that one. They've had to change UFC 303, and now UFC 305 has a main event. Israel Adesanya takes on Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight championship of the world, and this is such a fantastic fight. It's the only fight to make for both of these guys. Israel Adesanya deserves a title shot basically anytime he wins a fight. Or deserves, I guess, an opportunity at a title shot. And Dricus du Plessis is a fighting champion, and this was the obvious number one contender. So this is really the only fight to make for both these guys. And this was an intense rivalry that gets put on hold because Strickland goes out and beats Israel Adesanya, and then DDP beats Strickland. So moving to the front of the line is the defending champion, who now gets, I don't want to say a rematch for the title, but another shot at a title, just with a different champion. And there is a lot of heat between these two for a lot of different reasons. And this is one that I think needs a unique build. The UFC, for a bit, has, I don't want to say fallen into, but kind of fallen into a bit of a pattern of we're going to do the countdown, we're going to do embedded, and then we're going to do the fights. But I remember back UFC 94, so a ways ago now, GSP and BJ Penn, when they did the UFC primetime, it just made both these guys feel special. And I would like to bring this back. And I wonder if the documentary they did on the UFC just in general over on Roku might be a good entry point for that. Or, I mean, like you have ESPN Plus where you can just throw content on there for days, right? But one of the things that I think UFC needs to take in their partnership now with WWE under TKO is building up the big fight or building up these big events in unique ways. Like they've done big fights well, but I think now it needs a bit of star making. Like you have a guy who's been the face of the division for a real long time. Now he's trying to get back to the top of the mountain one more time. He's taking on the younger lion who is making some claims about some stuff. And this is a fighter that people can get excited about. And this is a rivalry that I think can really jumpstart DDP. Even if he loses, this can be a rivalry that jumpstarts it. And so if it were me, I would love for them, or if it were up to me, I would love for them to be able to kind of create a little bit more drama out of this and create create a couple of stars. Like, Izzy is a star. I shouldn't say that, but create a star out of DDP in this whole thing. And I think with some of that extra stuff, some of that extra character building, he does have a unique story. Tell that story. Let's go out and actually build this guy up. I think that would be a really interesting way of going about this, because we've seen over the last couple of weeks, this company needs those big high-end stars now. It's kind of Connor and everyone else. John Jones too, and everybody else. But what's the common denominator with those two guys? They've been around for a bit. Izzy, I think, can be on that level given the right opponent, and I do think this is the right opponent. But I do think that there is now a need to build up that next wave of stars, and they have a couple of them, like Sean O'Malley and those type of guys. But I think you have to get creative in trying to kind of manufacture that a little bit. And so I think going the extra mile with kind of a 24/7 style of series around a DDP might be a way to build up another star here in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So that's what's going on in the world of face punching. What about the world of professional wrestling? It's a big night. It's Monday, so it's Raw. Let's preview it. WWE Raw coming off of a pretty good Clash at the Castle, but I do think they need a strong follow now. Money in the Bank is less than a month away. You got qualifying matches tonight. That should be fun. Lots of stakes, lots on the line. I just don't want these to be obvious squash matches. Like, I don't want it to be like, oh man, intense qualifying matchup here today. Jey Uso against Tozawa. Who's going to go to Money in the Bank? You know, like, the reason the King of the Ring was so fun is, like, you had real stakes and you had matches that could go either way once you got to a certain point. And so I think there's a lot of intrigue with that, and so I hope that continues here. I am interested to see if Braun Breaker isn't in this and just keep that anger going as he gets ready for a feud with Dragunov after essentially killing off Ricochet the other day. But I do think that there is some intrigue around that. I'm interested to see Drew's promo as well, and what direction they go with him, because like it felt like he was a babyface last Monday. He definitely felt like the babyface at Clash at the Castle. What is he now? Now that we are back, I guess not all the way stateside, because it's Toronto for Money in the Bank, but now that we're back here in North America, away from his home country, have we babyfaced Drew to the point where he is a lead babyface now, and Punk ends up being the heel, or what comes out of this? So I will be interested to see what direction they go with him, and where do they go now? Like, I think you have the obvious that it is Drew against Punk at SummerSlam. Doing it at Money in the Bank doesn't make any sense. Do you just leave Drew off of Money in the Bank? Or is there someone who kind of gets in the way as a bit of a sacrificial lamb to get Drew a win, actually, and build him up now into this SummerSlam mega match? I'll be interested to see what direction they go about that. But it does feel like a bit of an awkward period right now. We know that Nia is going to be challenging for the Women's WWE Championship. We know that Gunther is going to be challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship. We know that it is going to be Drew against CM Punk. We presume we know that. And that's a couple of months away. You have a pay-per-view, or PLE, sorry, in less than a month. How are we building up to this now? How are we getting that excitement for it? And what are we doing here? Like, do we have another one-off for Priest as a title headliner? Or are the Money in the Bank matches enough to just, we don't need Priest's title on there? I personally want as many defenses as I can for Damian Priest on premium live events, make him feel like a big star. But again, if you just, oh wow, Tozawa's challenging for it, like, it needs to be someone who actually has some cachet and actually provide some intrigue into, oh, what are we going to do? What direction are they going to go? So that's something I want to see there. I think one of the big things from tonight is the likely crescendo of Gable against Otis. I think this is when we get the Creed brothers. I think this is when Gable is like, okay, enough is enough. It's the losing you guys are costing me all these matches. I've gone out and got some real guys. And you get the heel turn for the Creed brothers, the heel turn for Ivy Nile, going up against Otis and Maxine Dupree and Tozawa. And man, Tozawa's taking a lot of hits in this one. But I think that's where we go for that. And Otis, it's going to feel like a big deal for Otis tonight. Long term, what is it going to be? We will see. But for right now, it's going to feel, I think, like a big deal. What's next for Sami Zayn? The IC title has been pretty strong. I think building a lot of this Gable frustration off of I want the Intercontinental title continues to keep that importance that we saw coming off of the Gunther run and the Sami Zayn title run that we've had. So now who is next for Sami Zayn, I think is going to be interesting. And I'm also very intrigued tonight at the Liv Morgan Judgment Day advancing. Do we just pretend that we didn't see Finn snag that card key? Or do we acknowledge that these guys probably go on social media and watch the show and saw that Finn snagged that card key 7 days ago? So that is really interesting. It starts an intriguing week here in the world of pro wrestling, because you have the NXT Battle Royal, and the winner will face Trick Williams for the title at Heatwave. And so there is a lot of assumptions that TNA is going to be featured very heavily in this. So I'm really interested to see what this episode holds and how they are able to integrate that right now. And we saw some NXT wrestlers showing up at Against All Odds. That's really fun too. And I'm happy that it's being eased in a little bit. I'm happy that it wasn't just like, oh, here's 8 wrestlers and it's an invasion. It's NXT versus TNA. What are we going to do? It's like the NWO all over again. Because that's something TNA, it basically felt like TNA every 6 months was trying to recreate the NWO with Aces and Eights, Main Event Mafia. We have one faction that is leading all factions, and they are trying to take down the very fiber of this company. It felt like they did that a little bit too much. And I guess they have, like, they do have a faction now with the Scene, I think it is. I always forget what it's called. But they seem to be running shit right now on TNA. But I'm happy that it wasn't just, oh man, here's 8 NXT wrestlers and they've taken everything out. I'm happy that it's being eased in a little bit, but I want to see something crazy coming up on Tuesday. We did see something a little bit crazy in TNA, and that's the Hardys are back. It's back where Matt has done his best work for sure. Jeff Hardy is always going to be one of my favorites, and so getting him back there, I think it's fun as well. And like, honestly, not to be a AEW hater, but I have more excitement right now about NXTNA than I do about AEW Forbidden Door. It's new, for sure it's new, right? Like, we've never seen anything attached to WWE do something like this before. So the newness of it absolutely brings that intrigue, but New Japan has felt like a bit of a cool-off product for a little bit now, and a lot of the guys who would be coming over, like Naito against Moxley, it's like, well, I'm not going to the show, and I've seen them matches before. So that it isn't this like wild crossover thing. Like we've been getting these for a little bit now. So the newness of it has kind of worn off. And I think the CMLL talent coming in has been fun. I would like there to be, again, classic AEW criticism, I know, and I apologize, but I would like there to be more story around the CMLL guys other than, oh wow, aren't they crazy and Mexican? Here they are in an 8-man tag where there's a bunch of things and you don't really understand the rules. I would like there to be a little bit more around that, I think. One more thing. I saw the criticism this week of Will Ospreay against Rey Fenix, and it's a criticism we've had for forever, since, oddly enough, since Ospreay and Ricochet, where it's like, well, this is supposed to look like a fight, and these guys don't look like they're looking to win, they're just putting on a choreographed spot show. I'm sorry. That whole line of whatever is so infuriating. And yes, there are some who will believe the glory period of wrestling was actually the territory days, where men were men, and baby faces rode with baby faces, and the heels rode with heels, and never the two shall meet. And everyone believed it was real because we believed it was real, damn it. Hulk Hogan hulked up. You know, like Dusty Rhodes. And again, I am not taking anything away from any of these performers, but like Hulk Hogan hulked up, and he was the biggest star that wrestling has ever seen and brought it mainstream. Dusty Rhodes, one of the smartest minds in wrestling ever. If we're talking about this being a actual simulated combat, I have not seen a street fight in my life where some guy does 3 jabs and then does a shake, rattle, and roll and elbows a guy on top of the head. You know, like, there is a certain entertainment factor of this, and you can go on and on and on, right? Like Ric Flair doing the flop thing. Macho Man Randy Savage pointing up to the crowd as it's going along. Like, I'm not talking about Jake McGee doing whatever the hell. These are some of the best wrestlers of all time who did shit because it was entertaining. That's what this is. Like, why is... God, it's so frustrating because, yes, it is not just the time where a 45-minute sleeper hold felt like a dramatic, exciting match. And, like, no, it doesn't feel like it is an actual fist fight. but it's still part of the whole entertainment product. Like, I feel like people who talk about these sorts of things just glamorize pro wrestling back in the day. And there were some, right? Like, Arn Anderson was a no-nonsense whatever, right? Like, you had guys who were like that. But there's always been playing to the crowd. There's always been things that have been done to bring a flourish to things and fancy up what is supposed to be simulated combat, essentially, right? That's not a bad thing. This is supposed to be entertaining. This isn't just supposed to be fake MMA, because then it sucks. We saw that at NXT Underground, and it was fine, but if that's all pro wrestling was, no one would watch it. So, no. Does Will Ospreay doing a handstand out of a cutter and Phoenix doing the same thing, and then they do a couple flips and they do the superhero pose, is that something you're going to see in a street fight for your life outside on Stephen Avenue here in Calgary next week? Probably not. But it was still entertaining as fuck, and you can still get caught up in the storylines with these performers. And so that whole old school mentality is just getting so old. On that note, thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Peter Klein. You can follow me on social media at Primetime Klein. If you're watching this, make sure that you like this video and subscribe. If you're listening to Couch Potato Diary on podcast, make sure you subscribe and leave a review. I will talk to all of you tomorrow. I'm out.